All right. This is an interview with Delores Zurita on April 25th for the Women, Politics, and Activism Since Suffrage Project at her daughter's office in Compton, California. This interview is being conducted by Angela Salter. Okay. Can you tell me when and where you were born?
I was born in Mobile, Alabama.
And what year was that? Did you grow up in Mobile, or?
We left Mobile when I was 12 years old.
And at that point you moved to California?
Compton, California.
Compton. Can you tell me a little bit about your childhood family life?
Sure, I came from a large family, I would say. It was 3 brothers, and it was 3 girls, including me, and a wonderful daddy, you know, with lots of love. And when I was 12, I became a caregiver for my mother, who had a child, my youngest sister. And that was the reason we came to California. I remember a doctor, a white doctor, came to our house one night. And, you know, since I got older, I'm trying to remember, did he come by car, horse, or what? Because, you know, it was a long time ago. But we did have cars then. But he came to my house and he told my daddy, I want you to take Anna Mae to California. You know, they have better, that was my mom, they have better doctors out there. And the climate might be better for her arthritis. And so then he said, and I don't want you to fool around trying to sell this house. He gave us a check for the house. And then we had to figure out how were we going to get Mama to California. She couldn't come on a plane, or she couldn't come in a car, you know, because the way her hands were drawn. And so then we hired, the doctor gave us a check for the house, and so then we hired a white man in a big truck with a canvas on the top of it. And we put a mattress in there, you know, in the back for my mom, and we all sat around it. And that's how we came to California. The check, part of the money, was given to my brothers who were living here. They were grown. And so they had bought us a house in Compton with the money. So when we drove into Compton, we just backed right up into our house, driveway, and they had it all set up for us and everything. And I was 12 then.
Okay. So what was Compton like when you were young?
When I first came, Compton was a lot different. You know, I went to Enterprise Junior High School, and it was probably 20 black students. You know. Then I went to Compton High, and it was the same. And when I went there, the college was still located along with the high school on the campus. And I think after I was there for a year, the new Compton College was built down there in Compton.
Okay. Was it difficult being one of very few African Americans living in the area?
No.
No?
You know, I had come from Mobile, Alabama, where things were really quite different, you know. In Mobile, as I always tell people, we knew our place, you know. They didn't want us to sit at the counters and everything, so we never tried. When we went downtown, we just went downtown and took care of business, and me and my dad, and shopping for school clothes or whatever, you know. And now my daddy worked for a lot of rich white folks, and they were very good to him. I think the people owned Coca-Cola back then, who he worked for. And they had all the best food, and he used to go out on yachts with them, and everything that they had left, he would bring it home to us, you know. So we got used to the best kinds of food. And,
Okay. Were your parents born in Alabama as well?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In Mobile?
Not in Mobile. They were born in Atmore, I believe, in the country, like. Mm-hmm.
Is that near a major city at all or no?
Atmore?
Yeah.
No, I've never been to Atmore. You know, I just heard about it. Mm-hmm.
And what did your parents do for a living?
Well, like my father worked for well-to-do white people, and he worked at Bell and Graff's Garden. It was a place where it was a garden, a large garden with all kind of beautiful flowers. The people who own Coca-Cola owned that garden too. And what I remember about my father, he was always bringing little cuttings home of flowers. And even in our backyard in Mobile, Alabama, we had one of those hot houses, a glass house, where, you know, he would bring the cuttings home, and they would root, and then he would plant them. We had beautiful flowers. We had azaleas in our yard as big as this room, because that was the plant, you know, that Mobile was known for. I guess it still is, to some extent. Mm-hmm.
And your mother, did she work
Well,
as
my
well?
mother, you know, she became an invalid when I
Mhm.
was 7. But prior to that, she was a housewife as far as I know, but sometimes she would tell a story about working for white people, you know, in their kitchens and stuff. Mm-hmm.
So what sorts of messages did you receive from your parents about gender roles?
About gender
Mhm.
rules.
Just as far as like what sort of professions that you should go in, or what was appropriate for a girl to do or aspire
Okay.
to.
Well, at that particular time, you know, we, as a matter of fact, in the 12th grade, I had to drop out of school because my sister, who would take care of my mother every day, was pregnant, got married, and she was pregnant with twins, and she would have to come from Los Angeles to Compton to take care of my mother. And then she got so big, she couldn't come anymore. So in the 12th grade, at the time I was married, I dropped out of school, but I went right on, you know, and took the GED and passed it. Mm-hmm.
So what sorts of values did you get from your family?
The values was respect others and their property. Do unto others as you would have them to do unto you. Mm-hmm. Those were the values, you know, that I grew up with.
Okay. Why do you think those were emphasized by your family?
Why? I suppose with me, they were the right things to do because I taught my own girls, you know, the same things. Mm-hmm.
So was your dad involved in politics at all?
No.
No.
Mm-mm.
Okay. So while you were living in Compton, or you could talk about in Mobile, how common was it for a woman to get a job or receive an education?
Well, in Compton, it was common. Mm-hmm. You know, when I was growing up, it was common. Sometimes maybe a little more difficult, you know, sometimes, but it was common. I don't remember, you know, people talk about prejudice in Compton at that time, but I don't really remember it too much because, as I said, I had just come from Mobile, Alabama, and where prejudice was everyday living, you know, every day. And we always heard about the Ku Klux Klan, you know, and we were really afraid of white men, you know. But I came here, you know, when I was young, My parents was mixed too, you know. My father, you would think he was a white man because his father was white. And my mother's father was white too. And from what I understand, the two fathers of those, my mom and dad, got together, you know, and selected them to get married to each other. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So how common was it for a woman to be an activist or involved in politics in Compton or Mobile? Is that something that you saw?
In Mobile, I mean, I don't remember. You know, I came here when I was 12 in Mobile. Mm-hmm. And I think we were just trying to take care of my mom. You know, I had three brothers, and they all went away to the war. One was in the Navy and the Air Force and the Army. They were drafted, you know, so they went away to the war. And it was just my father and me and my sister and my youngest sister, you know, trying to take care of my mother. So sometimes we were just limited in things we saw, you know. Mm-hmm. Our focus was on her. And we went to school every day. I always say, I went to school every day, and at 3 o'clock I had to rush home and take my shift with my mother because my father would go to work at 3 o'clock. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So how would you compare your experience as a girl in your family to the boys in your family?
Well, the boys were the oldest, you know, and we were the three girls was the youngest. Was the same. Okay.
Mm-hmm. As far as your roles within the home?
Yeah, because my brothers used to help a lot, you know, with my mother.
Okay. And you mentioned that they were drafted. Was that for the Vietnam War?
No, they were, let me see, where they? World War II.
World War II?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay, so they were quite older than you then?
Yeah, it was, all the boys was born.
Okay.
And then the girls. Mm-hmm.
All right. So you mentioned where you went to high school, I believe?
Compton High.
What about primary school?
Back in Mobile, primary school. When I came here, I was in junior high.
Do you remember the name of it, or?
But in Mobile?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was Katie Carroll, Miss Katie Carroll. So it was one big room, and all grades were in there.
Okay. Was that school segregated?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So as a child, what did you aspire to?
Well, as a child, you know, I wanted to be a singer. And I thought I could, you know, a little bit, but because of my mother, you know, being, she couldn't participate with us. I don't ever remember my mother combing my hair, but I do remember when we would get ready to go to school, we'd just walk in there, and she said, turn around, and she would see what we were wearing, and she said, get that string off the back of your dress. You know, that was the extent of what she could do for us when we were growing up. Mm-hmm.
So why did you want to be a singer? Did you?
Because I thought I could sing, you know, a little bit. I liked Billie Holiday. Okay. And, you know, certain singers back there with jazz. Lena Horne. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're great.
Mm-hmm.
So did you have a mentor when you were a teenager?
No.
No?
Mm-mm.
Did your family attend church at all?
Yes.
You did?
We did. Not every Sunday, but we certainly believed in the Lord, and we knew the Lord was good to us, you know. And even today, I don't go every Sunday, but I call on Him and depend on Him.
Okay. Do you remember the name of the church that you visited?
El Bethel Baptist Church.
Is it still here? Or?
It's still here on Avalon and about, let's see, 117.
Okay. So what role did faith play for you and your family, sort of answer that a little bit.
Well, we had to have faith, because my mother suffered, so we were always praying and hoping that she would get better, and hoping for a miracle with my mother. She died when I was 15, and I never will forget the night she died. She said she was tired of suffering and she didn't want to suffer anymore. And I remember I was doing something for her. And when she told me she was tired, she started breathing funny. And I called my daddy. I said, Daddy, Mama can't breathe. She's not breathing good. And I ran into the kitchen and got me a brown paper bag, and tried to breathe into it and put it up to her nose, and help her to breathe, but it didn't. And that's when she passed.
Sorry. I wanted to talk a little bit about after high school.
Okay.
And kind of what you did. So what did you do after high school?
Well, after high school, I was still taking care of my mother for a while. And then after high school, after she passed when I was 17. And I got married, when I was in high school.
Okay.
And to my first boyfriend. I got married to him. Then he went away to the Korean War. And so I continued to take care of my mother. And took me a long time to have children. I thought I wasn't going to have any. I even had artificial inseminations for about 3 years at Tyler Clinic. I didn't have a hard time myself, but I just didn't get pregnant. And I went to a clinic called the Tyler Clinic in Westwood. And used to have to take my husband's sperm, and then that didn't work, and so then they start using someone else's, and that didn't work either. And so I didn't do anything for about 2 years, and then I finally had Satra. I guess nature corrected itself.
So going back to your husband, it's Clarence, correct? So how did you meet Clarence?
Oh, well, what we used to do on Sundays is just sit out in the car, in front of the house, because my mother was sick. And then my daddy would let us drive around the block, with the car. We were learning really how to drive good. And there was this boy that used to come by all the time and try to talk to us, but we would never talk to him. So this particular day he came by and he had Clarence in the car with him. And Clarence was kind of cute, then. And so we said, oh, we got a guy with him, So we hopped out the car, and talked to him. And that's how I met Clarence.
Okay. And when did you get married?
I met him when I was 15, so it was 2 years later.
Okay. Right. And did you get married here in Compton?
No, Yuma, Arizona.
Oh, how did that?
I was only 17, but I got a little notarized piece of paper saying I could marry Clarence, just in case we had any problems in Yuma, Arizona. And we went there and got married. And on the way to Yuma, I remember it was an incident. We stopped in a motel, and Clarence went up and got the room. And see, I didn't want to go because we weren't married, but we were tired, and he insisted that we go in. And as soon as we got in, I don't know how it was, but somebody asked me something about me, and I thought maybe they were saying I was too young or something. And me and Clarence came out the window and continued on to Yuma, Arizona, because I was afraid. I knew I wasn't old enough to be in a motel with Clarence.
Okay.
He was 25, when I married him, so he was older than me.
I meant to ask, did you go to college?
Oh, I went, what I did was, how I got my start, I'll tell you that, is I always felt bad because my mother could never participate with us with anything. And so I said that if I have children, I was going to dedicate myself to my mother and participate in whatever my children were doing. So when Satra first went to school, I was working at night in some kind of little job, factory job. And so when it was a charter school, Dickinson Elementary School, brand new school. And so I wanted to be the PTA president. And so I stayed home on the day when they had the election. And they elected me as PTA president. And that was my entree into community service. And from that, me and several other women had heard about a program called the Lighted School Program in Flint, Michigan, where they used the school after hours as a learning center for the community, the total community. And from that point, I started taking college courses, from UCLA, extended courses in the city of Compton. Maybe I'll think about the other ones in a few minutes. It was a long time ago. It was all kind of programs. Then I started, let's see, where did I go to college? Compton College. I think Redlands. They were all extension courses in something that would benefit me at the time with whatever I was doing. And we had, as I said, it turned the school into a learning center. We were funded by the Compton Unified School District for $20,000, and we were little housewives, who wanted to make a difference in our community, not only with our children, but with all the children. Because at the time, we felt like they were ours. They were playing around with our children, and we always said, "Who knows? Our children might decide to marry one of those boys, so we better make sure, they have been groomed too." So we traveled all over the United States to programs. Flint, Michigan is where the program started. And after 2 or 3 years, we couldn't get any funding for our program. We had volunteers, coming in once a month, once a week, football players, doing clinics with our kids. And it was just a wonderful thing, at that time. And now when I'm somewhere, all young men come up and hug me and say, "Thanks, Mrs. Rita, you guys kept us out of trouble." Because there were no latchkey kids at that time. They were able to stay at Dickinson Elementary School until 8 o'clock every night. Some little boys were supposed to be bad. At that time, the government was giving out some kind of little money to students if they participated in after-school programs. So our little boys who was supposed to be bad, we made them security guards, around the school. And I can remember sometimes, we say, "You can go home today because we're not doing anything." Oh, they said, "No, we're staying here. We're going to protect our job because Mama said we don't have a job." So, and that was a great thing at that time. I remember WLCAC in Watts had money, and all they had was having the kids just marching, but at least they were involved in something.
Was that a parade? I know Watts would have parades.
A long time ago.
Right, yeah. Okay. So I do want to talk about your work with education.
Okay.
But I also wanted to ask you about your kids. So you have two daughters,
kids.
is that correct?
2 daughters.
Okay. So tell me about your daughters.
Well, let's see, what can I tell you about it? I guess, well, after I was married 8 years before I had Satra, you know, and told that I'd never have any children. When I did have her, we were inseparable. You know, they were always with me, whatever I did. They were right at my side in the after-school program and wherever I was. Then, you know, that program, that after-school program went on to the senior nutrition program, because when there were no funding anymore for children's programs, we had the senior nutrition program, Meals on Wheels. I did that for 44 years. And so they always assisted me and helped me in whatever I was doing. Now, Satra, she attended Dominguez College. She didn't graduate, but she attended there. And then she attended a lot of other colleges, getting certificates to assist her in what she was doing here at City Hall. Janna, she was a surgical nurse, and they complement each other, you know, but completely different. Satra's smart, you know. She would always say, I think she washed dishes about 5 times in her life. And Janna was, you know, the workaholic at home. And when I would tell Satra, it's time for you to wash dishes, she said, oh, I'm studying. And so I said, oh, okay, go ahead. So, Satra's worked here, I guess, most of her life for the city of Compton. I was trying to, she had some little jobs. She worked for Greyhound and other places, you know, a long time ago. Janna worked in surgery.
And Satra is older than?
The eldest.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and she was born what year?
Gosh. I have to think about it. I just asked them the other day. I wrote it down. I always know the day they were born, you know.
Yeah. That's important for me. It's birthdays, not the year.
The day, I can tell you, Satra's December the 2nd, and Janna's August the 19th. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So both of your daughters are involved in public service,
yes.
Right?
Uh-huh.
So how did you feel about your daughter's decision to get involved with?
I probably encouraged them. I know I encouraged Janna because the seat was open. And one day I just said to her, I said, Janna, guess who's running for a council in the 1st district? She said, I don't know who. And I said, you. And she said, oh, okay, well, we better start raising some money.
So you were involved with helping her run for office? Okay.
Well, you know, I stand in the background, you know, and well, you know, advise them and let them do it. You know, I'm not up front. And the reason I don't get out front is because I feel like I've done my time. You know, I've done my time. I was the councilwoman for 8 years. And then I directed Meals on Wheels for 44 years. And I've earned my stripes. And if I get out there now, you know, I've been told somebody off. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I'm depending on getting to heaven.
So I know your husband's also involved with politics, or was?
Well, he worked for the LA Water and Power.
Okay.
And he wasn't involved with politics now, because that's how we lived our lives, you know. He was involved in community, I guess, you know, whatever, you know. Because he never came to city council. The whole time I was there, you know, he never came. He knew about what was going on because we talked about it, you know, or something, but he wasn't in my space and I wasn't in his. That's why we've been married 62 years.
All right. Okay. So going to when you became an elected official.
Okay.
So you sort of talked about how you started getting involved in Compton civic life.
Mm-hmm.
So was it first you started in Meals on Wheels?
On Wheels.
Okay.
And then, you know, at first, there was a whole river of money flowing down here for programs like Meals on Wheels. It was Edward Kennedy had started those programs all through the United States. Meals program, and a lot of talk back then was, older people were eating dog food and all kind of stuff, so that that is, well, and how we got to do that program. The city of Compton had received information about funds being available, and so since we were the oldest nonprofit in the city of Compton, they gave the proposal to us, and we did the proposal and was funded with the Old Americans Act. So as years went by, the older population continued to escalate, but there were no longer resources for the programs. They were dwindling, and so I continued to talk to city council people about the need of the elderly, and it appeared that nobody was listening. So I decided maybe if I run for city council, I could be the advocate for the older people on the floor up there. And I did, and I won. And it was good. When the other council people were talking about children's programs, which I love children's programs, but I usually say, what about the elderly, And they got us where we are, so, and then they would say, oh, okay, and for years it was a good thing because the council people at the time when I was there, we passed a continuous resolution so that if, in fact, during the year, if I ran out of money, I could come back to city council and ask them to fund the program again. And it went well for me for years while I was on the council. But then, after years, there was something that happened in Compton, and well, it had to do with the Compton Police Department because it was talk about we couldn't afford the police department no more because we were paying for their retirement, even after they were retired, and it got to be an expense. And for me, I listened to all that, and I had, during the time when I was a councilwoman, a lot of the young guys would tell me, Miss Zurita, these two-way radios don't work. And I've told my wife, if something happens, they know what to do. Sue the city, that's what they were alluding to. And then they told me, and these vests, they don't work anymore because they're buying them from inferior companies. Their own friends was making them. And so that, along with how much we were paying for retirement, and then our old cars, our police cars were broke down, and we didn't have money to repair them. And for me, I think it's something wonderful about having your own police boys from your community to police your community. But when you can't afford it no more, it's like owning a Rolls Royce or a Mercedes. I had a Mercedes once, and because I wanted one, and my husband bought me a used one. But then when it broke down, we couldn't afford to get it fixed. So, I understood that whenever something serious happened in Compton, if somebody got stuck on the tracks, we didn't have no equipment to get them off of there. We had to call other cities or call the sheriff. So all of that helped me to decide, that we need to go with a bigger law enforcement, like the sheriff, because they were the ones that was helping us in a lot of the cases. So I voted for the sheriff to come here. But before I voted for the sheriff, I asked Sheriff Baca, I said, if I vote for the sheriff to come here, because I had the first vote, will you hire guys? Because, I got to be sure that they have a job before I vote for this. And so he told me, well, we'll hire them all if you should have had them in the first place. And with that, I thought we should have had him in the first place, so I voted for the sheriff to come. Now, in retrospect, I don't know if I would have done that, because that started a whole campaign against us, the three people who voted for that.
Who's us? Who is that?
Omar Bradley and Rahh. We were the three people who voted for it, you know, and so, and you know what? Lately I've been listening to the history of politics. I didn't know politics could be so bad. Because, you know, I just recently heard that at first Kennedy didn't want black folks to vote. I guess, you know, maybe in the South, because it was so much trouble. You know, he didn't want them to vote. And I saying here, the black folks idolized him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was a reluctant supporter of civil rights.
Yes. And so, if I had known, and so then, you know, it's like somebody plant a seed over here about you, and then somebody else help it to grow. So I went to jail. I went to jail. I was arrested and went to jail because I voted for the sheriff to come here. And I got my arrest record right here. You know, when I was arrested, I never will forget that day. They were saying Omar Bradley was going to go to jail. And so I said, oh, Lord, you know, well, if he's going to go to jail, you know, they may come for me. And we were having a jazz party that night. And a girl named Lynn Dimely, her daddy was Mervyn Dimely. You might have heard of him. He was first Secretary of State black. Oh, he was from somewhere, Belize or somewhere like that. You should have heard about him. He was a congressman. He was the one that paved the way for all these other guys, you know. She knew a lot of DA women, and they were at someplace getting their hair done. And she said, one of them said, we're going to pick up Omar Bradley Monday. And so she rushed to where we were and told us, you know, that they said they're going to pick up Omar Bradley on Monday. And by the way, Omar was my nephew, and still is my nephew. You know? So I said, ooh, Lord, so I took me a late shower, you know, and laid out my clothes in case they came for me. And they did. They came for me. And my husband, he didn't know nothing about nothing, you know, and when they came and knocked on the door, I jumped up and opened the door, you know, as fast as I could. And it was three people, a woman and a man with a camera and another male policeman. And I never will forget that day because, you know, I was about to put a dress on, and the woman DA said, don't put that dress on, it's cold down there. Put some pants on. And I thought that was nice of her, you know. And by that time, people had gathered in front of my house, you know, outside. And I asked them, please don't handcuff me, you know, in front of my children. And they didn't. So this took us down to Twin Towers, took me down to Twin Towers. And when we got down there, the staff down there was saying, why y'all bringing these people in here? And they didn't know. And even my husband, said, what did you do? You know, they didn't have no idea why we were going there. But I went there, and after I was there about 15 minutes, here come the other lady, Miss Arsenault. She was a councilwoman. They brought her in, and had her hands handcuffed. She said it was so tight, you know, it hurt her. But they didn't, you know, handcuff me. And her hair was standing over her head. I said, as soon as you can, you know, comb your hair, you know. Then they locked us up in a cell and gave us police clothes, you know, something that looked like pajamas and a sandwich and all of that. And I never will forget that day because we were in there and it was stuffy. You couldn't breathe hardly, and I have allergies. And I told her, I said, Yvonne, they forgot about us. You know, they put us in there. Their excuse was to keep those young men who had been arrested and lined up out there from bothering us out there. But I'd have preferred to be out there with them because at least I could breathe, you know, because it's a little closed up place. And so finally, somebody, a woman, like, I kept picking up the phone trying to tell them something and they wouldn't answer. So finally, somebody knocked on the door. And then she opened it, you know, after she had the key, but she let us know she was coming in, and it was this big woman. And she said, Delores Zurita? And I said, yes. You know, and I said, oh, wonder where she taking me, you know, to myself. And so then she told me, Mrs. Zurita, Danny Sneed, who had been a Compton police, and he was over the Twin Towers then, told me to come and tell you that he's sorry, you know, that this happened to you. And he's going to get you out of here as soon as he can. And he's already told your daughters where to meet you. So, you know, and then after that, well, we had a long trial. I was on trial for 3 months. I had to pay all my retirement money, you know, for a lawyer. But I'm sure that if he had known it was going to be for 3 months, he'd have charged me a lot more, you know, when he signed the contract. And his name was Anthony Willoughby. He was a great attorney. I even got a piece of paper here where it says that, you know, I was found not guilty, but, you know, after being there for 3 months. And then, every day, you know, for 3 months. Then after that, it was so much, you know, going on there because they tried us all 3 at one time. And not 3, it was Miss Ursula, that's 4, and the city manager, you know, they tried us all at the same time. But after that happened, then a few days later, here comes some auditors from Washington, D.C. to audit my program.
What program?
The Meals program. So, you know, I was suspicious at that. You know, why is somebody all the way from Washington coming here to... So I called my attorney, and he sent his assistant there to meet these people when they came the day to do the audit. And they gave him a card from a firm in Washington, D.C., and he looked at it and he said, oh, these are my friends in Washington. Every time I go to Washington, I stay at his house. And that just set the tone, you know, for the whole thing. The girls, it was all women, and they just settled right down, you know. And there was some students there, you know, that was auditing me. And then once the audit started, they told me, this is what we're looking for. You know, we're going to tell you what we're looking for. We're going to give you a complete audit. But if right away, if you want to give us what they ask us to look for. So when the auditors got through, they owed me $1,000. The project did, you know. And that's just how good God, you know, is to me. You know, like I say, you know, I'm not at church every Sunday, but God has always been good to me. And then they brought somebody else in there, and the people they brought in talking about, how can you guys make this program work on this little money? Because we were still, after 44 years, I was still getting $29,000 a year for directing the program. Because we put all the money into the meals.
So these audits, they happened after you were acquitted?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would do an audit every year, you know, anyway. But this audit from somebody in Washington, D.C., you know, go audit me.
And what were the accusations that people made that caused you to...
I guess I can't... No, because, I mean, I didn't have... Everybody loved me, you know, in the city of Compton, especially the elderly, you know, and their children loved me because I took care of their mothers. I was getting calls from I was the perfect person for that, because with my mother being sick and an invalid, I knew exactly how to take care of, people. I would get calls from people all over the United States, would you take care of my aunt? Because I don't think my cousin is taking care of her the way that she should be taken care of, So I was loved, by everybody, and still is, when I'm in, but it was close to, I lost my election because of going to jail, because the woman who ran against me, she took the articles from the Times newspaper and put it in everybody's mailbox. So, if you continue to see that kind of stuff, it's going to question you a little bit. The trial hadn't got started yet. It was just the accusations, And so then I just kept on directing Meals on Wheels. I guess I did it another 20 years, after that, and until 2012. And the reason, I guess I didn't do it after 2012, because my assistant had to take the proposal in, and she was 3 minutes late, and they wouldn't take it. But after looking at everything is by design, because it was like somebody punched me in my stomach when they told me they didn't take the proposal. And I had been doing that for 40 years, And so I called, and I couldn't, it was at late in the afternoon, so I couldn't call till the next morning. And I said, what about our seniors, who's going to feed them? And they told me, oh, we got somebody. So it made me think that, this was planned.
To not turn in the proposal?
Not to take it. Because it was due way in LA, and in the past there were people down there who looked out for us. And then it got so it wasn't no people looking out for us, all Asian people down there. And so Asian, and we didn't have a good relationship with them the way we had with the white and the black that had been down there for years and years, because they never would have let that happen to us, But I said, at first it was hard to take. Then me and my daughters, we went down to Mark Riley Thomas and the Board of Supervisors, because they had a lot to do with it. And so we begged them, if we can't cook the meals anymore, would you let our staff continue to deliver? Because, for seniors to have somebody strange coming up to their door delivering their meals, that wouldn't be very good for them. So finally, they agreed to it. But then the meals was coming from out in Orange County somewhere, And it had taken me all those years to get everything just the way the seniors like it, because I would constantly be doing surveys and asking them, how you like this and how you like that, and they always told me. But as soon as that happened, they became so unhappy, and was calling me and saying the food was nasty and this and that. And I did eat there once since I left, because the food looked good. It was carrots and mashed potatoes and roast beef. So I said, I'm going to eat today. As it's at the Dollar Heights Center, our center here in the city of Compton. But it tastes like water, and so I said, oh, I couldn't eat it. But I would always tell them, because I was so good for them at Christmas time. I gave everybody a gift. If it wasn't nothing but a pair of socks, I would wrap it up, and give it to them. And they missed all that, and they missed me. But I would always tell them, well, something is better than nothing, and it is kind of nutritious, because we all had to have dietitians. And so just go ahead, and try and eat it. And they did. We could have, and then this year they come calling me, asking me, want me to do it again, after 4 years. I said, hell no, that was a lot of work. I didn't realize that was 44 years, feeding sometimes 500 people every day. I was never late, never missed a day, and nobody never got sick. So, that was a hard job. When I look back, I don't even know how I did it.
Okay. So I didn't get a chance to talk about like how you first started in your city council position.
Okay.
So you first ran in the 1990s, or?
Yeah. Let me see. But you need me to. No.
Just
Okay. Well, I
proximate.
said, you
Yeah.
know, that I want to talk about the plight of the elderly.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't have enough money, you know, to feed them. It was just by the grace of God, you know, that we got through. You know, my accountant would say, well, we don't have enough money, you know, money's going to run out. And I would say things like, oh, God is going to take care of us, you know, we'll do it somehow or another. And we did, you know, we made it. I asked for donations from corporations, but it wasn't a whole lot of corporations, you know, here in the city of Compton. And maybe 2 or 3 companies that could help, you know. It's not like in LA, you know, it's a lot of big firms and companies. So, but I made it, you know, I made it all those years, and I don't even know how I did, to tell you the truth. Because sometimes it was very, very hard, you know, not knowing where your next dollars. And that's when I ran, you know, for the city council. And for the first years, you know, it was good. And then after we got in trouble and went to jail, and somebody else was up there on council then. And I used to go up there sometimes and, you know, beg them for money. And it would be like they was just looking straight through me. You know, I would talk about how difficult it was. One person I remember helped me was Mayor Period. One time when I went up, and he found $20,000 for us to end our year. I think it was in about April or May or something like that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So were you working in a different position while you were on the city council?
Still
or?
directing Meals on Wheels.
Meals on Wheels,
Mm-hmm.
okay. So just those 2 things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But I made my debut into the city of Compton by being the first PTA president over there at Dickinson Elementary School, and then we had the after-school program. And from that, we went, there was no more funding, and the city of Compton asked us to do a proposal for Meals on Wheels, and we did, and we were funded. Mm-hmm.
Were you running against someone, or were you the only person running for city council?
No, I was running against him, and it was hard, you know, it wasn't easy. But I ran the first time based on, you know, I'd handled millions of dollars, you know, with county dollars for, with the program, and fed millions of meals, unduplicated, you know, the same person a lot of times, you know, counted them, you know, in the numbers. And that's what I used, and I got elected. Mm-hmm.
Did you go door to door and tell people that you were running, or?
Yeah, I did. I
your...
did go door to door, and it's funny, you know, that you should ask, and it reminds me of who was my first campaign manager, was Isidore Hall, who's running for Congress now.
Oh, wow.
He was about 12 years old, and when I was going from door to door, he joined me, him and another little friend,
Mm-hmm.
and we walked all over the city of Compton, and it was good because I only had to pay him $20 a day, you know.
He was your unofficial campaign manager? Okay.
But he tells the story always now, you know. I gave him his first job over at Dickinson, Meals on Wheels. Okay. And still, you know, is in contact with him, in touch, because he's our, what is he? He's our senator right now, running for Congress. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How did your family react to your decision to run for city council?
There was no reaction, I guess, because I don't remember, you know, good or bad. You know?
Yeah.
Satra was just so smart, you know. Mm-hmm. She was my real campaign manager, you know. She was working here in the city of Compton. And then not only her, I told you my nephew was Omar Bradley. And when I look back on the different ones that I had some part in them running for office, when I was running, Omar Bradley used to do a lot of my campaign stuff. And at that time, we didn't have any money. We was just running flyers off, with the sheet of paper. And then it was Isidore Hall. And then there's another little guy named Makai Ali. I don't know if you've heard of him.
No.
He's on the school board now. He was the president for a long time. He did run for assemblyman. He was my liaison for a long time, so I kind of take credit for him too. And he finally gave me credit lately at my birthday party.
So once you got elected, who was on your staff? Like what sorts of people were supporting you as you worked?
Well, I had him. He was my liaison, and before I came, they were kind of limited in the things that they did. But once I came, and he was my liaison. He was a little college graduate from Dominguez College, and they made a pretty good salary, working as a liaison. And I kind of set the tone when I would go on trips, all over the United States. I was going on trips. I'd take him with me. We used to have so much fun, I'd call him my little slave, because he would carry my luggage and, set me up in my room, and then he would get going in the streets. But let's see. He said the other night that I didn't act like I was his mom. I act like I was his grandma, so that was good, And because we used to be, sometimes I remember we were shopping in Mississippi, me and him, looking at clothes. And some little old ladies, they was just looking, they thought I had a young boyfriend. I said, they think you're my boyfriend, and so I thought of something. And I told them, I said, he's my bodyguard. And they just, thought that was so wonderful. That was fun, I had a lot of good times, with him. And, I wouldn't change it for anything, but I don't know if I would vote for the sheriff, because I did go to jail, and I spent a lot of money, to be declared innocent, which I knew I already was. But sometimes I used to look at that door going into the, you sit out here, and it's a door where they take you to jail, And I was really close to that. Sometimes you would say to myself, I'm real close to going to jail. And, but there was a lot of prejudice going on. The judge was in cahoots with the FBI was knocking on my door and everybody else, because after that happened, where we voted for the sheriff, I don't know, so much was going on, since I've heard, At the time, I thought we were just bringing better police service myself. I didn't know all that was going on. And if it would happen to me again, I don't know, I would be reluctant, because police can be mean.
So you think they were prejudiced against African Americans?
Who?
You said the judge was prejudiced, or?
No, not against...
not racially, just...
not racial, just prejudice, going with the other side.
Okay.
He died shortly after that, though. So I found some comfort in that.
So I wanted to talk about some other issues that you tried to tackle while you were a councilwoman. You talked about Meals on Wheels and older adults. Were there any other goals that you had for the community?
I sponsored all kind of activities. I had a bone marrow exam. I remember when I first got there, for some reason we had a, how do you say that? In Washington, D.C., we had a conference. I guess on bone marrow or something else important, I can't remember. But every year I had an Easter egg extravaganza for the kids. I had Black History program every year, you know, for the community. What else did I have? I just had all kind of activities, you know, for the community, things that benefited them. I had, what is it when you bring the seniors in and you talk about subjects that would benefit them, health, law, wills, you know.
Mm-hmm. So how did the people of Compton respond to the initiatives that you undertook?
They participated. And one thing I did have too, I had a jazz, and toward the end, I had a jazz night on Thursday nights. And we would have live music and food. The food would come from firms, companies, you know, would support it. And it was wonderful. The citizens could come to a place close to their homes, the older people, and we would allow children to come too. The children would come and they would have food, and then after a while the older people insisted that they go home because they didn't want them to see them dance, you know, in a certain way. But even today, you know, I have people asking me, we should have those jazz concerts, you know, on Thursday nights like we used to. I made a mark, you know, on the community. Everything I did was for the community.
Okay. Did you ever consider running for national office?
No.
No?
I was contented right here in my own little hometown. I was going to leave my family, you know.
Are you still in contact with some of the people that you worked with?
Oh, yeah. When I came in here just now, you know, that guy that did attend Cal State Fullerton, he saw me from a distance. He'd just been hired as assistant city manager. And, you know, he was so delighted to see me. You know, I got caught up, you know, with that sheriff thing, you know, because I was the humanitarian on the council, you know. But after those boys had told me, policemen, young men, about their two-way radios and the vest wasn't working, and I know we had a big fire here in Compton, plastics, and we couldn't put it out. You know, we had to wait till some other agency came from somewhere else to put it out. So I saw it as a need.
Okay, so did you want to talk a little bit more about your work with the schools in Compton and after-school initiatives?
Oh, well, we had the after-school program. We had heard about a school in Michigan. They called it the Lighted School Program. And that meant at 3 o'clock, the schools wouldn't close down. They would open up for after-school activities. And we had teachers would come in and tutor kids. The high school kids would tutor junior high. And at the time, we had some money, a little money, you know, to pay them a little stipend. And junior high would tutor the elementary kids. We had programs for grandmas. We had English as a second language that we offered. We offered ballet. We had music. And I guess we had, when I say we had ballet, because one of our kids went on to Dance with the Moon Rouge play in New York a long time ago.
Wow.
Some of our kids went on to be doctors, the kids that we took care of in the afternoon. We had a trail on the campus there where kids would go in there and play games and do things, but the community was alive, after 5. We didn't close the school down. We was taking full advantage of taxpayers' dollars. Parents didn't have to worry about if their kids was going to go home and be alone, because they could stay to the school until 8 o'clock.
And these programs were running like throughout your time as a councilwoman?
No, before I was a councilwoman.
Before, okay.
When I was a councilwoman, that money there ran out, and then probably after 2 or 3 years, we were the only ones that was volunteering. Volunteers would come in and do certain things, for us. Maybe one day a month or something like that was okay. But we were there every day, the 3 mothers. We'd have a big dance on Fridays. The grandmas would be in there and the little kids, everybody would be, in the dance at the school. Sometimes fathers would come in there and they'd say, who all here, supervising. We said, just us, And they were really saying like we were sitting on a keg of dynamite, but we weren't, because the kids and the grandparents, everybody, was working together and enjoying each other as a community.
Okay. So you mentioned that you didn't want to leave Compton or run for national office. And I also know that your daughters also have stayed here in Compton. So I was wondering, why is Compton such a special place for you?
Why? I guess it's I don't know, the first place I came when I came to California. And I had the opportunity to move when Satra was in elementary school, But the school was right around the corner from where we lived. And to me, that was worth a lot. To me, My daughters, they took their kids to elementary school far away. But I always feel comfortable with my kids being, close to me.
So what would you like people to know about Compton or the citizens of Compton?
Well, Compton is a good place. And to know us is to love us, I say that all the time, and my children say it too. And people who, I remember at Dickinson, the senior program, we were audited a lot of times, by the county, state, and everything. And these young, pretty little white girls would come and do the audit, And after they was there for a day, they loved it. They loved the guys, And they would go to lunch together. And I said, well, okay now, you be an ambassador for Compton. When you hear people talk about Compton, you say, no, it's not all like that. And it's not. A long time ago, we had problems with gangs and drugs, and I don't know if you went to see Straight Outta Compton and all that, did you?
No, I didn't.
But even those guys that did Straight Outta Compton, they weren't bad boys. They, Dr. Dre and the other 2 guys. As a matter of fact, one of them took my youngest girl to the prom.
Oh, really?
She didn't have a date. So Satra asked him if he would take Janna to the prom. And he did, and that was good. The Old Yellow, I think they call him that, got pictures of it. But Compton is a good place. All those guys that were so bad and selling drugs, they're gone. They're either in jail or dead.
Okay. So what are your hopes for Compton? What do you hope this city can accomplish?
Well, I don't know. Because the more things change, the more they remain the same. We're still fighting and having meetings about things that when I was a councilwoman we were meeting about. And sometimes, I get, Satra and Janna don't necessarily want me to go to the meetings, because I know that we're meeting about the same things we met about 30 years ago, and how are we going to change it? We're a good city, and all of that, and, but little simple things. Because in city government, for instance, I went to a town hall meeting just recently, and they were talking about some people come into Compton and dump trash. You know, they do a job somewhere else, and they know where a spot is, they can come and dump the trash. So it's really behind Centennial High School, and there's a lot of really nice houses over there, and nice neighbors. And the neighbors shouldn't have to go through that, you know? They shouldn't have to go through that. And so the city manager said he brought somebody in from the gas company in different places and walked the area and did a survey and trying to come up with a conclusion. So I said, okay, I raised my hand. I said, after being in city government now, I know how long it takes for something to get done. And you'll be still trying to figure this out 6 months from now. Why don't you just have a truck go over there twice a day and pick up that trash until you can come up with a good conclusion on what you're going to do about it. And a lady who was complaining so much up in front of me, she turned, yeah, but that's gonna cost. And so I said into my mind, well, you guys make up your mind. You know, you want the trash to go? And so I told the city manager in private, I said, I wasn't talking about a permanent solution to the trash. I was just talking about why you're trying to figure something out. And so I said, some of those guys that's sitting around in the trucks talking on the phone, they could run over there and pick that trash up. But see, we don't have people that care, you know, because if I was a truck driver, if I drove by and saw it over there, I'd pick it up. Nobody wouldn't have to tell me.
Okay. So just improving some city services are some things that you hope that...
Yeah, we need to improve some city services. We got a lot of potholes here in Compton, and they're all over California, though. You know,
Yeah.
Sometimes I go in Beverly Hills, and there's some up there. So maybe, you know, the federal government, people don't understand that there's certain line items for certain things, you know. I remember when I first started working at Dickinson Elementary School, and the principal drove up in a brand new car, and one little boy said, now I know why we eat hot dogs every day. She done took all the money and bought her a new car. I had to say, no, that's already, you know, she have a budget for this school, you know. But a lot of, sometimes citizens believe that, you know, that people, because they said that Omar Bradley and them took money. It wasn't no money to take. You know, he went through all of that, and he was declared innocent of most of those things. But now they're charging him again with something else, you know, after 17 years. So he lost everything he had, his teaching credentials, his home. If he hadn't had a devoted wife, he probably would have lost her too, you know, through all that. But he's still, you know, struggling with all of that. And people said that, I said, I was a politician, ain't nobody never offered me no money. For nothing. And then if you spend the money the way it's supposed to be spent, how you gonna get some?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to ask you a little more questions about community organizing. It's more general questions or reflections. So how would you describe your leadership style?
Okay, my leadership style was, what's the word I want to use? You know, I wasn't aggressive, ever. I was always kind of, you know, in the back of the room, you know, because even when I was directing the program, nobody knew that who Delores Zurita was, directing Meals on Wheels, because I always knew that if you get above the radar, you know, people will start shooting pot shots at you. So I was the humanitarian, you know, and that's all I know how to be. You know, sometimes my girls are not that way now, you know, because they see what happened to me, you know. But I still have compassion for almost everybody. Mm-hmm.
And so you chose to operate that way because you didn't want to...
That's how I operated, you know. I get my most joy out of helping others.
In your opinion, what does it take to be an effective leader?
To listen to people. I was a great listener, you know. I still am. I spend my time, you know, sometimes, some days I said, Lord, that's all I do is listen to people and their problems, you know, every day, including my sister, you know. And, but then I came to the conclusion that's what I think I was put here for, is to be compassionate and listen to giving advice, because I enjoy that, I think.
So what does being a public servant mean to you?
Public servant for me is trying to do your best for the citizens, and that's by providing a safe community, a clean community, and a community. I think the city and the school go together. You know, I'm so proud of my daughter, Satra, who's the president. That's all she do is eat and think schools. We just passed a bond and they're going to build a new school. And she and her group has turned the school district around. They just found out lately that the guy who had been reporting the graduate levels had been reporting it wrong, and he had been saying that only 6% of the kids graduate from high school. So she just went to Washington the other day, you know, to take proof. Not Washington, Sacramento. And it's been declared that the kids in Compton are graduating almost at 90%.
Oh, wow.
And we got blue ribbon schools in the state of California. Maybe they were going to pick 10 blue ribbon schools, and we have 3 in Compton.
That's great.
And this is because she cared, you know, she just cared about the kids in Compton. And her little girl didn't go to Compton because when she ran and she decided that she didn't want nobody to give her daughter no special treatment. So she went to school, you know, outside of Compton.
That makes sense. Do you consider yourself a leader or an activist? Is that a title you embrace?
I'm not an activist.
Okay.
I'm someone that's, you know, respected for the work that I've done, you know, in this community. Janna is trying to get a little soul food restaurant going, and I stopped there before I came here. And one of the firemen was there before when I was councilman, and he gave me a hug and told me, "Oh, Mrs. Rita, you look beautiful," you know, and this and that and the other. And another guy was there, and he said, "You gonna have lunch?" And I said, "No, I'm going, you know, I gotta go for an interview." And so I told him, I said, "But you know what? I used to work in a nightclub, and the bartender, the guys were going to buy me drinks. I was a hostess, and guys were going to buy me drinks, and I didn't drink. But I had a little thing with the bartender where he'd give me a glass of water, and he would take the money for the drink and give it to me at the end of the night, and I would have a nice little cup of money. So I said, you can just put the money in the cup, and when I get through in my interview, I'll come back and have lunch." I just said all that to say that, you know, there was 2 or 3 people in there that I had known for years. And by me, you know, I've been in this community since I was 12. And that's a long time, you know, and I kept my reputation as, you know, a lot of them call me Mama Zurita.
Do you consider yourself a feminist?
No.
No?
Because, you know, when that was coming along, you know, I was 17 and married, and I was trying to have a baby.
Having children doesn't mean that you're not a feminist.
I know it doesn't, but, you know, just this morning, there was a piece on television about feminists and how it was, you know, at one time women were having sex and not having children, and, you know, and all of that, and being, how do you say it, displaying their bodies. You know, back then, it was just, I guess, wearing something, showing your breasts, you know, sometimes. I even wrote it down this morning when I was, because I knew I was coming here and you were going to ask me something about feminists.
Yeah.
Anyway, what was her name? The lady that's known for the feminist movement.
At what time? Right now? Or
No,
back
I'm a feminist as far as, you know, I think that women should be paid the same thing as men. But when they first started back there, you know, I was like 17 or something like that. I was married. You know her name. And
Gloria
yeah,
Steinem?
And I was in Compton. My mother was sick. And it was something going on the other side of the world. You know, we was just, you know, surviving.
Okay. So what does that word mean to you, feminist? What associations do you make with that word?
Oh, for me, the part that I want to believe in is that, you know, working hard for equal rights. You know, if a woman can get paid the same thing as a man for doing the same job, that's what I like to see it as.
Okay.
Holding the same positions, you know, talk about, you know, I've seen so much in my life, you know, on that, being 80 years old, you know, and women fighting the, what do they call it, the glass ceiling.
Has your gender or race affected the way people view you as a leader?
No.
No. Okay. So how has your role as a mother affected your political life?
It didn't, because
didn't?
as I say, they were always with me, and no matter where I was, you know, which is different from a lot of people. I could be in the office with whoever. My children didn't call me often, but if they did, my staff knew to call me so I could answer. You know, my children was important to me, the most important thing in my life.
So I guess in connection to that, would you have gotten involved with politics if you didn't have children? Did they somehow inspire you to go in that direction, or?
No.
No?
Well, they inspired me to want to be active in their school life. So that was the beginning, I guess, of my political career, you know. If I had not had the children, I don't know what I would be doing.
That's how you got involved with the PTA and things like that? Okay.
It gave me a voice, you know. I could speak up for my children and everybody else's children at the time. And as I said, my mother couldn't do anything for us. You know, I don't remember her combing my hair. So, you know, I just wanted to do it for her.
And just some reflection questions.
Okay.
So what does it take to be a successful representative for the constituents of Compton?
Well, first of all, you got to care about the community. You know, you just can't come in here for your own personal needs. For me, it was I cared about the way the city looked, the trees needed to be. See, people in Compton just want their trees trimmed and their streets clean, and hopefully get rid of some of these potholes that we have. And they want to feel safe. That's what people want, you know, from their politicians. All that other stuff, you know, was extra that I did. Mm-hmm.
I also know that I guess they're building an industrial park, a new one in Compton.
Mm-hmm.
I think your daughter was involved with that
Yeah.
recently.
Mm-hmm. I grew up right across the street from there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was always like a dump, you know, over there. I don't know if they were doing some with bricks. I think they were, because, you know, they call it the brickyard. That was a hard job, you know, for my daughter, because a lot of people were against it. But if you see it now, compared to the way it did look, and they just redoing it, I don't know how anybody could be against that, you know. There's supposed to be some jobs over there for the community, which is very important. They say Amazon is going to be over there.
Oh, wow.
But people fought it at first, a few people. But she had neighborhood meetings in people's backyards and everywhere, you know, to talk about it and to tell them about it, how it was going to be. And so they're working over there.
Okay. So what's been your greatest challenge as a politician?
My greatest challenge was going to jail. You know, and being treated like a criminal when I had done nothing but directed Meals on Wheels, you know, for many years and took care of children. And then, you know, I went and I had to spend my retirement money for that. That was my greatest challenge.
Okay. What cause were you involved in that's of particular importance to you?
Cause?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I devoted, you know, my whole life to my children and Meals on Wheels in the city.
Mm-hmm.
I got this award here that I want to show you. My most liked award.
Most liked for?
It's a
Think
Mother
it's upside down,
Teresa
sorry.
Award.
Is it?
Mother Teresa.
Okay.
Because, I don't know, it seems to me I always like the underdog, you know. I remember when Satra was pregnant and I had a campaign office, and it seems like all the strange people would come in, you know, to see me, because I would always say hi to them and be nice to them. And Satra said, "Mama, you better stop bringing all these weird people in here, you know. I'm pregnant." Because there was an old saying, hope you don't put it on, that, you know, you could mark your kid by, when you're pregnant, by people if you feel sorry for them or if you laugh at them. That's a Southern thing, you know. So it seems that, you know, I always attracted those who were less fortunate, and I enjoyed it.
Is this what you're most proud of, that award, or is there?
Well, I got
something?
lots of awards, you know, and the really nice ones when, toward the end, even before they knew we weren't going to have the program again, I was, what do they call it, Woman of the Year for the state of California, you know, in Isidore House. The Deltas, you know, made me Woman of the Year. Doing Mother's Day. I got a whole list of, you know, but this one I liked because it was at the Queen Mary. It was from the city of Compton, you know, and I didn't even know it. At the time, I just went to the luncheon.
And you were surprised.
Uh-huh.
That's good. So why is social justice so important to you?
It's important to me because now when, in retrospect, I look back and I just realize how so much injustice has been done, to us as a race, blacks. Just in the same case of when, back in St. Louis or somewhere, when the DA and the police department worked together on a case, I just could see how they could change records and change stuff. And that was the same way they did with us with the sheriff and the police department. They worked together against us. It should be somebody from the outside that don't have any connections to anybody to do the investigations.
And St. Louis, are you talking about recently?
Yeah, what killing was that first? Was it in St. Louis?
Ferguson, or?
I think so.
Ferguson. Yeah, it's very close to St. Louis. I think it's a suburb.
Ferguson. Yeah, that's where I'm talking about. And then you think back, a lot of young men are in jail and shouldn't be there. And then, I was a Clinton fan, but I just found out that her husband was the one who brought up the 3 strikes.
Right.
And to me, it was sad. I know that a lot of young guys were selling drugs and doing things because they didn't have any other opportunities. If they had had a good education and somebody who cared, maybe we wouldn't have had, as many problems as we did, right here in the city of Compton. For me, I had girls, and there was not a lot of problems for girls. Girls, I'm glad I had girls. But I guess the kids didn't have parents, who could take care of them, or who did not take care of them, so they got in a lot of trouble. A lot of parents, I remember a long time, when we first started, they could only relate to their kids when they got in trouble. They'd come up to the school on that day and curse the principal out. But otherwise, they were never around. So, I didn't think about that a lot, to talk to you about today. I know I could have.
Do you want to talk about that? Because I know you were in the city council in the 1990s when crime was really bad. And people thought that was a solution to come down harder.
With the Clinton thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I got 2 feelings about it, because things was real bad, and something had to be done. But then there were a lot of guys who got 3 strikes and shouldn't have. That's what make you be kind of against it, you know. But you know what? With the politics now, I'm glad Bernie is running against Hillary.
Okay.
And the reason I'm glad, because just think if she didn't have nobody running against her. He's jogging her thinking about a lot of stuff. And I think, I really do, most days I do think that she'll be a good president because she's a woman. And she's not going to leave no stones unturned. When you're a woman and you have children, you look at things a lot different from a man. And I think by him at least bringing up subjects, she have to address them. If it hadn't have been nobody there to bring up stuff, she could have just rolled on in, My husband, he says he don't want her to be president.
Okay.
And we fight about it all the time. And I said, why? She couldn't even take care of her husband. And so you know what I tell him? It take more than one woman to take care of a man sometimes.
Okay.
And this morning, when I was listening to Trump, which I listened to MSNBC, I know everything on there by heart. I go from 32 to 34 to 37. I started doing that when Barack Obama was running, you know, and I got so used to it until I still do it every day, all day long.
32 to 37, are those?
32, 32 is Fox News.
Oh, okay.
I can't stand them, but you got to know the other side, you know.
Yeah.
You got to know what they're thinking too. And then I go to MSNBC, and that's supposed to be the politics station. Then I look at 37, but I don't know which one I was watching this morning before I came out. I think it was 37, and Trump was talking. You know, he said a lot of good things. Because I always wondered why it was just a few people who elect a president in this country. What do they call them? The electoral voters. Because, you know, every year they'd be already have declared a winner before California get in. And I always thought that was so unfair, and I couldn't figure it out when I was younger, you know, but now I do. And why should just a few people from the states elect the president? And he's against that. I just wonder if he could change. Maybe we do need a revolution in this country, you know, in politics. Because like he said, or somebody said, when that was put into place, how many years ago when this country was started?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things that happen now is different, you know. I think every vote should count.
Okay.
And, you know, a lot of things he said. You know, then income tax, we got to pay it on our, when we're earning our money, and when you're retired, you got to pay income tax. It ought to be another way. And I think he can do it. Because the reason I do, because he's a businessman.
Okay.
But I'm going to vote for Hillary.
Okay. I think a lot of people feel there needs to be some sort of
some
change
changes.
on both sides. Okay. Just getting back to some of the questions.
Mm-hmm.
What role has your faith had in your activism?
I was told to come check.
Okay, I'm serious.
You good?
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm. The role is my faith. I always have faith in everything that I do. You know, I know that the Lord is good, and He's going to take care of me. I pray a lot, and I've learned just in the last few years of my life to put it in the hands of the Lord and leave it there. You know, don't be going back to Him about the same thing. Because I've already put it in His hands, and He's going to take care of it for me.
Okay. So how's your political experiences shaped the person that you are today?
Well, it shaped me that I know that it takes a long time for anything to happen in politics. And you can throw a lot of stuff against the wall, and you do, and once in a while something sticks. You just can't expect for something to happen overnight with politics, you know. Things that you start may not happen for 10 years later or 5 years. I know that, so there's no need to get excited over politics and what's going to be and what's going to happen. And I learned that it takes 3 people. 2 plus 1 equals 3. You got to have 3 votes for whatever you do. You can come up with all kind of good ideas, but if you don't have 2 people to come with you, it'll never happen.
As far as legislation, or?
Mm-hmm. And the way you do that is you join hands with the other people on the council, find out what they want to do, and support their issues.
So patience and working with other people.
You got to
something
work with them. You got to, you know, you have to have an ally. And you can't ever get on there and thinking you're going to do something by yourself, because you're not.
Okay. So how are things different for women in politics today than when you were in office?
I think it's basically the same, you know, because I can see my daughter Janna as a councilwoman, as I was. And although, like I say, I was a humanitarian, you know, and I'm a person that if anybody ever did anything for me, I don't care how small it is, I never will forget. And, you know, I try to share. Sometimes my daughters might be saying something. I said, but no, you got to help her, because remember she did something for us a long time ago. And they might say, oh, Mama, that was then, and this is now. Maybe they don't say it just like that, but I'm using that as an example. And sometimes I think politicians of today had a lot, seen a lot of things, because my girl, you know, she sat in my trial every day when I was on trial for 3 months. Janna did, you know, so she understands more than the average person understand the trouble you can get into in politics. I don't know if politics is a good thing or not.
Okay. So it's still a difficult thing to navigate.
It's a hard thing, because she go through a lot, you know. No matter how much good you people, there's one or two people there to agitate you every week. And my husband, he'd always watch the council meetings, you know, he'd get mad. He never watched nothing when I was there, but with his daughters, he watched the school board meeting and the council meeting. He want to go up there and beat them up, he said, messing with his daughters.
So why do you think it's important for women to get involved with politics?
I think it's a good thing, because, you know, we're kind of different. Like I say, we look at things a whole lot different from men. Men make a decision quick, but we'll kind of, you know, roll it around in our brain and think about it. Especially women with children.
They think about things more?
The total package, you know, and would it be good for their son, you know, their daughter, or their mother, because, you know, we always think about our moms, or daddy. In the case of us, my dad was, you know, with us until my mother died, and he was still with us afterwards, but what I mean is, there were no divorces, you know, and I'm with their dad.
Do you see a difference in how men and women lead? You kind of mentioned this.
Yeah. Sometimes men look at it and what's in it for them. You know, not no money or nothing like that, but I think they may look at, you know, can you give my friend a job? You know. Whereas, you know, I would look at it like this: can you give somebody from the community a job? Can you hire some of our kids that need a job? You know, that's how I looked at things.
Okay.
Because in politics, you can help everybody in the world, but you can't help your own friends or your own children. You know. And sometimes that gets to be difficult, because you be done just help the world, and then it usually work out. You know, somebody will help your children, but You can't ask nobody, you know, to give your child a child.
Okay. So what would you tell young women who wanted to get involved in politics today? What advice would you give?
Well, I said get involved. It's a good thing. You know, women make better politicians, in my opinion. But we need the men there too. But sometimes women, I think women are more compassionate. And we just need the woman's touch. I would tell them to get involved.
Any other advice using your experience?
You got to be a good listener. You got to listen to people and their problems and try to help them solve.
Okay. So what sorts of issues do you see yourself moving into now? What things are you involved in now?
Not a lot, you know, right now. My friends are the president of Compton College. They take me to lunch, and the school board superintendent, those kind of people, they like to take me to lunch, you know. And I go with them and have a nice time. I don't, I'm not getting involved. Oh, I was just, got a nice little position. I was just elected the president of my church senior residence. At first I didn't want to be in it, you know, the guy, the preacher said, come to the meeting, and I just went, you know, I just sat to listen. He wanted me to critique the meeting. And then the next thing I knew, they elected me president. I said, if you had told me I was going to be elected president, I probably wouldn't have come. But then after I thought about it, you know, that's my field. So, you know, I'd probably be the best person just to be sure that the residents are treated with dignity and compassion.
So for that position, you're sort of doing what you did with Meals on Wheels?
Yeah, in a way. Just, you know, they live there.
Okay.
And that was by accident, you know, I got that position. I've been asked to do some things, but I choose not to, you know, because like I say, I've already earned my stripes. And I sit at home, you know, a lot of times, and I be bored, and I come up with all kind of programs and good things, and then I just tear them up, because I say, you know, I've done my time.
Okay. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about today?
No, I'm happy with my life, you know. I've been able to help a lot of people and do a lot of good things. I have 2 beautiful daughters and 2 beautiful granddaughters. And I was reading the other day something about, people always ask me if I'm proud of my girls. And I always said, well, I hadn't thought about that. I'm just proud that they have decided to, you know, make a difference in their community, and people believe in them and voted for them, you know. Then I read something where when people stop talking about how they're so proud of their children, it's because they begin to be proud of their grandchildren, and they talk about them all the time. So I'm really proud of my grandchildren, because my little 9-year-old, she was baptized last Sunday, and her mama got baptized again with her. And it was so funny and so cute. I didn't even know my daughter was going to get baptized again. And the preacher asked Chanel, my youngest, if she wanted to, she said she wanted to be in the choir, because they have a little youth choir. And then he asked her if she wanted to read the agenda on Sundays. He asked me, does Chanel read well? I said, oh, yes, she read real well. And he asked her, you want to make the announcements, Chanel? And first she didn't say anything, and then way later she went up to him and she said, okay, I want to read the announcements, and I'm going to be in the choir. And they're going to have a little play here in Compton. The girl that Janna had went to school with, she's dean at USC over acting and all that. So they're going to have a play in Compton. And Chanel, she wanted to be an actress, so she tried out and she's going to be in the play. My other daughter's Armani. I got 2 designer granddaughters. She went up to San Jose, but she didn't like it at all, so she's back and she's going to Dominguez. She want to be, well, her course is being a, what is it, PR person? What do you call it? Yeah. But she really want to be a stylist. So I said, well, you get your, you know, you could write about the movies and all that kind of stuff. A writer, that's what she's, that's her study. And so, you know, I'm just happy with my 2 granddaughters. And because me and them talk about them, my 2 daughters, because all they're into is politics and the school board.
Okay.
But I'm happy. I'm happy with my life.
All right.
With all the good and all the bad, you know, I'm happy. And I'm glad, you know, I've been able to make a difference in my community by taking care of the seniors for all the time, providing them with dignity and a well-balanced meal. Because I always knew that one balanced meal could have an impact on their health. And it did.
Okay. So we'll end the interview here. Thank you so much for being here today.
Okay. Thank you.